being an only child, I think my parents kind of.
You're an only child?
Yeah.
I'm an only child as well.
Oh really? Oh no wonder you had more strict parenting as well, right?
Yeah.
I think being an only child is kind of, there's its pros and cons lah, like everything. But I think naturally when you're an only child, your parents will wanna take care of you more because you're like that one, right?
Yeah.
And they can't screw up this one. And the natural result of that is they become a bit more overprotective and sheltering you from a lot of stuff. And so, I know this is gonna sound a bit weird, but I was actually banned from doing chores.
Wow.
Like when I was younger, cause
Me too. Yeah.
wait, wow.
Parallels.
Yeah, that was it hard for you then, I guess. I don't know, like being banned from doing chores is just very weird because everyone will always be complaining about, oh my god, I have to wash the dishes, I have to do. Then for me, it's like, wait, you guys get to do that? I don't even get to do that. And I genuinely wanted to help. Now of course, I think the other end would be true as well, where if I have to do it every single day, I'd probably get very like bored of it, which is why most people complain, I guess. But for me, it's like, I find it weird because I wanted to help, but I was not allowed to, and they said, you shouldn't be doing these kind of things. Focus on your studies, go play your games, go practice your piano, this kind of stuff. So it's a very, I don't know, when I went to UK, it was a very, I don't know, it's very free kind of a thing, and I felt like, wow, I finally have some level of control over life. And I think being responsible for something is actually very, eye-opening, that you don't realize that actually, wow, life is actually difficult in like when you have to actually care for things and those kind of it's a very weird thing when I went to UK, because I was actually quite happy about that because I finally got a chance to take ownership of myself, I guess, whereas here I don't think I get that opportunity very much. Now that I'm older, it's okay lah, because I'm already working and stuff like that, but when I was younger, up to I think even A-levels, I don't think I had much of a say in a lot of things.
Right. Do you think, being an only child and having that kind of mindset, being sheltered and everything, did that affect your Christianity in any way?
I think it did. Because it's kind of like, we don't really get exposed to a lot of the world, I think, because I think being an only child in a Christian family is kind of just like, you're protected from all the things that your parents would think are like evil, right? Well, how they would define it at least. And so that means like you can't go out very late, right? And you can't mix around with very bad friends and those kind of stuff. You don't drink alcohol, you don't smoke, those kind of stuff. And they would, so it's not just not being able to do that, they would even discourage you from making friends with people like that, right? So it's kind of like, oh, they'll be bad influence on you and stuff like that. And I think it made the understanding of just how the world is a bit skewed, right? You don't really know what the real world is like until you get a bit older. But I think for me, my experience is a bit different because I think my dad had this idea that even though I'm an only child and all that, he still wanted me to make friends with like what they would call normal people. So they sent me to SMK instead of like private school or homeschool. So I grew up in the SMK, and that was when I think my eyes were a bit more open, right? Oh, okay, cool. So people are like that, and I get to hang out with my friends and some of their families, and I get to see how like different people live a very different lifestyle, right? And there are some that are also not from very well-to-do families, and that's also a different experience, right? How the family bonds together over these things is quite different from how people with more financial stability would live, right? Yeah, huge experience, I think, from secondary.
Do you grow up Christian?
I went to church all the while since young. So since I was like 3 maybe. Actually, to be fair, I might have gone a bit younger. I just can't remember it. So, but my first memory was when I was like 3 and I was already in Sunday school. So
wow, 3 years old in Sunday school. Okay.
Yeah, it was still a coloring session, right?
Okay,
I remember I colored Jesus all sorts of various colors, and it's I think I wouldn't really know how to answer that question, I guess, but I've been going to church since I was young, and I think I used to have good attendance. I'm the kind of person that's like, I go to church every single week, and it kind of became like a habit. So now in my brain it's kind of like, oh, Sunday's like a thing where you just lock it, and that's like given to church. So that's my kind of pattern growing up, I think.
Right. So do you think, so this is why I asked you earlier about like, do you think being an only child affected your Christianity in any way? Because for me, that was how I grew up, and it affected my Christianity in a sense where I became a lot more individualistic, especially because the church background that I came from was a lot about individualism, making sure that you are happy all the time, and Christianity really was about just moralistic and therapeutic kind of teachings.
Right.
Did you feel that way as well about Christianity in the past?
Yeah, I think I definitely was not someone who understood the gospel very clearly, because I actually quite resonate with all the stuff that you said where so the individualistic part, I wouldn't necessarily attribute that to just being an only child. I think that's just the reality that was lived out around me, right? So you know how kids, when they just see how people around them behave, how they talk, and how they think or how they live, right? And you kind of just pick up some stuff, and I think those bits and pieces were quite central towards how I understood God, right? Because as a kid, you don't know a lot of things. You ask questions, and the people around you either answer them by word or by the way they behave, right? And you kind of know, oh yeah, okay, so that's how that kind of stuff works. So I think how Christianity was portrayed to me when I was younger, at least, is that I think God is this really amazing God, and well, they made it clear that humans have sinned, right? That we have this. What was the one they always quoted? The one where man's always fallen short of the glory of God. I think was it Romans 3, something like that. And they will always say that. So we were like, oh, okay. So what I understood was, I'm a sinner, and there's this God that really loves me and cares for me, even to the point of like sending his own son to die, right? And then they would teach me from, I think, the passage where they say, even for a righteous person, one wouldn't die, right? And I think that's what, Romans 5 as well, I think. Something like that, right? So these are a lot of these things I was taught to memorize when I was younger, growing up.
Yeah. So
that kind of formed the skeleton of, I guess, what my theology was like. And so, to a certain degree, that they treated kind of life as just, okay, so these are the facts you need to know about God, right? So God's holy, God's righteous, God is, like Trinity, right? And this kind of stuff. And then after that, then there's the gospel aspect, which is just like, so this God, the God that you know these random facts about, he loves you, he cares for you, he wants you to be with him, right? He wants to have fellowship with you and his church. So then you just need to have faith in him. And it kind of became like a, I guess, two-way exchange.
Yeah.
So the two-way exchange kind of works like, you be faithful to him, then he will bless you, that kind of stuff, right? And so that resulted in me kind of like doing a lot of these like devotion in the morning, like 15 minutes of just reading a Bible, and then praying a lot, and then going to church every Sunday. That's kind of stuff that was just drilled in, and I never really questioned it, because this is the Christian community I was in, right? And it's like, I don't know, without a different perspective, you kind of just think this is normal, or this is it, right? Until something happens, or then you only realize, oh, actually maybe this is weird. But if everyone around you is doing actually the same thing, right? So I didn't really think it was weird. So I guess it's not really just the only child thing that made it this way, it's just that was just the culture I was born in. So I think that's how it affected my Christianity a lot.
Right. Did it eventually frustrate you? Did Christianity frustrate you eventually?
Not in Malaysia, because I'm still with my parents, and life was like easy, right? Because a lot of things were already taken care of on my behalf. But when I went to UK, right, I finally got to experience living alone. And I think uni life was not easy, right, as many would attest to. So I think I needed to kind of fend for myself, and learning the reality. Oh yeah, uni has a really scary aspect called a group project. So that one's really scary, because you can't depend on yourself, and you kind of really have to put your trust in a group of people that you never really met, right? And I think in uni it's kind of different because many different people come from many walks of life, right? Where you think SMK, most of the people are generally from the area, so roughly you will still get the same kind of people, same kind of mindset, right? But in uni, I feel like many different people from many walks of life come together. So that was really difficult to actually work with people, and I won't go into much detail on this, but like my dissertation wasn't gonna be that easy because they did a lottery system for my dissertation. So instead of letting us choose, they kind of just randomly gave out a dissertation, and I got a topic that was really, really difficult and not to my liking. And I think my lecturer also kind of was, you know, the lecturer thing where they're just kind of there to fulfill a certain quota. So the lecturer didn't really help me that much. So I felt like my uni years were just really difficult in terms of that. And there's a lot of pressure because if I fail this, then I've essentially wasted a lot of money, right? And that made me, I think, test God, because, you know, I was taught like, hey, you know, God has my back, right? God is there for you, and God is someone that you can rely on, right? Then all things work for good of His people. So this kind of stuff were all the stuff that were flowing through my mind when I was going through difficulty. So, but at the same time, I felt like I was kind of more logical person than just blindly believing these things. So I kind of tried to put two and two together, right? So I tried to formulate kind of biblical Christianity, which is like, wait, so if this was what I was taught when I was younger, how can I like make it such that God helps me in, you know, this kind of thing lah? And I just thought about it. Actually, to a certain degree, wouldn't I think that God doesn't really love me because, you know, I serve a lot in church. I read my Bible a lot. I prayed a lot, right? So I was just thinking, wait, if all of these things are not faithful, right, then either God doesn't love me, or maybe I kind of misunderstood who God was, or maybe there is no God, right? So a lot of these kind of questions were running through my mind. And in the UK, when I was facing the difficulties, I actually tested God. So I just kind of, I forgot how I did it, but I just kind of made it such that I gave an ultimatum to God, and I said that, alright, so this is my problem. Of course you know, because you're God and you gave me this problem. So I think I've been faithful, so fix it or I'm out.
Yeah.
That was my really arrogant attitude towards God, born out of a misunderstanding of the gospel. So, well, naturally nothing got fixed. I mean, life is just life, right? So I think it was just difficult, and I decided that I'm just gonna wing it. Don't really care about God anymore, and I think I just continued on with the project, and I somehow got a pass lah, right? I survived, but my Christianity didn't lah.
Yeah.
So at then and there, I decided that I would just walk away from this Christianity. At that point, I had doubts whether this was Christianity, because it just felt really weird that this, if God is so real to the people in the Bible, right, why isn't He real to me? So I kind of just walked away from that kind of thinking. So in my mind, I carried on the thoughts that maybe there is a God, maybe there isn't, but it can't be what I believed last time. So yeah, that was my, I guess, UK experience in terms of Christianity. So yeah.
Right. Do you stop going to church completely after that as well?
Yeah, kind of. Because I felt like, what's the point, right? Because I go and I see, actually UK wasn't too different from here, by the way. The way they ran church there was very similar to what I grew up in. So I just thought, oh, okay, so I guess everyone's like that. And yeah, it just felt very weird, right? So, and there's also a logical flaw I couldn't quite understand, because if God is for me, but God is also for you, what happens if you and I, when we contradict our kind of, like, if I want A and you don't want A, then who will God give it to, right? So a lot of these kind of questions were not really answered, I think. And I don't think many people can answer them. They will always just say stuff like, trust God, have faith in God. And I always felt like those are just non-answers, and answers that are just, it's like, how to say that, you don't really care to find out if these things are true. Yeah, so yeah, it's just, I would say it is quite frustrating to a certain degree, right? To answer your previous question, these kind of things, and I just walked away from it. There's no point, I feel like.
Right. So right now you're a membership candidate in CERC. So definitely something changed after that.
Yeah.
What happened?
So I think when I was in the UK and I kind of left church, I still kept in contact with some of my friends. So I kept in contact with Janice Ling, who is also a membership candidate here, and she reached out to me and we just kind of chat, and I just told her a lot of the stuff I was mentioning to you just now, how life hasn't been great and all that, and I just told her I'm walking away from Christianity, and she was quite shocked because we grew up together in the same church, and she was very concerned actually for me because essentially if you're not with God, you're gonna go to hell, right? And she was concerned for my well-being and my state before God, and so she actually challenged me on about the kind of like the gospel and what kind of God I believed in and all that. But I don't feel like a lot of those things went into my head that time. Yeah, but I think thank God she was actually persistent with it So I think it was around March of 2020 that this happened, that I caught up with her, and I came back to Malaysia around June 2020, so it's about 3 months, and I was just roaming around, right, unemployed, and that was when around COVID started around then as well, right?
Around then,
okay, so it was around there, and then I think towards like August or September, we just talked right over time, and she just sent me some of the sermon links from CRC. I think the first one she sent me, what was it called? It was Jerome's sermon on Jeremiah 29. I think it was a weight one.
Yeah.
And I heard it, and I honestly don't remember much of the content, but but I knew he was talking about prosperity gospel, right? And he was saying how the prosperity gospel is wrong, and my initial response to it was like, I tested that in the UK already, I already know it's wrong, who cares? So I didn't really pay much attention to it. I wasn't really paying attention to how he worked out that it was wrong, because for me it was just, I experienced it was wrong, right? So it didn't really stuck, right? It stick, sorry. And it just I kind of left it at that. And then I think later on, she sent me, it's the 12 Minor Prophets. I think Daniel Lu was preaching that one. And I noticed it was very, God-centered, even though he was talking about the 12 prophets. Because when I was younger, how a lot of the Bible passages were taught was that it's always about that person, right? So in the story of, for example, David versus Goliath, it's always about how how wonderful the whole scene was, right? That God was with David killed Goliath and all that kind of stuff, right? There was very little to do with about, I guess, the bigger picture, right, of why that event happened. And so I think for the 12 Minor Prophets series, the sermon, it was just very interesting how there was always a reference to what God wanted, who God sent, what were the people's response to this God and to God's messenger, right? So there was something that was a repeating theme throughout the sermon that I thought, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And mind you, I was playing Minecraft, by the way, when I was watching the sermon, right? But in the back of my mind, these things kept, the repeated themes kept popping up. And I think at one point, the one that got me to stop playing the game was when Daniel Lu asked a very hypothetical question. So he was saying, if God told you to go to hell so that his name be glorified, right? It was paraphrased, I don't remember exactly how he said it. But the gist is, will you go to hell so that God will be glorified? And my brain actually went, no, obviously not. Why would I? Because the whole point of Christianity is for me to go to heaven. And he kind of answered his own question later in the sermon when he said, a Christian would, because a Christian is someone who really cares about God's glory above all else. And that honestly kind of short-circuited my whole brain, because I was like, huh? You mean Christianity is not about me? Or it's not about, all of us going to heaven, right? It's about God's glory. And I thought it was very weird, because how I understood glorifying God was, God is for me, and me living my life successfully on earth is the means to glorify him, right? That's why I was always taught, get a good job, get good friends, get good grades, get good relationships, and glorify God that way. But I've never really thought about it in the way Daniel phrased it. And so I thought it was very interesting how, oh, you mean in a cast away your whole life for God's sake way of thinking about Christianity. And so that got me very interested to just come back again, because I thought, wow, okay, perhaps I've really misunderstood Christianity. And then I did some kind of like a reflection after the sermon. I thought that's probably why I lived my life the way I did lah, right? Of all the misunderstandings of God and all that, was because the center of, I guess, my Christianity was not God. It was just me, and then like God is like, I don't know, maybe beside me or above me a bit or something, but he was not the center of my whole, the whole existence lah, right? He's just some side character. So yeah, so that was what I think initially got me to keep tuning in to the sermons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
you just
yeah.
kept coming to the next sermon and the next sermon after that.
Yeah. And I think Janice also invited me to growth groups. And I think that was helpful as well, because I think the culture was quite shocking, that you get a bunch of people just there to study the word, and the way they study the word is they pay very careful attention to like what the Bible is actually saying, right? They don't adopt kind of, you just assume you know what the Bible means. They were like, oh, okay, you know, when they say this word, what does this word mean? Why is it there? What does this mean in the context of that time, right? And how does this therefore apply to us? So it was a very interesting way of studying the Bible, because, you know, the way I studied the Bible is just like, open it, read it, it's like, ooh, okay. Like, okay, I think this is what it means. Okay, done. Like, close the Bible. And I think even in like the various other experiences I've had of studying the Bible before this, it was also very similar, where it's just kind of like everyone, okay, I share my opinion, you share your opinion, and it's kind of fine. And I think, oh yeah, I did have a question regarding that also actually when I was younger, because opinions contradicted and that was somehow okay, and I thought that was like, yeah, very weird like, then what's the point of the whole, like, what's the point of any of this, right? I can just say whatever I want, right? Who really needs the Bible at that point in time lah, right? So there was a huge shock that people were taking the Bible seriously here. And the other shock was when one of my GG members, he kind of read the text wrongly. He misunderstood the usage of a word. I forgot which text it was, but my GG leader, John Chin, he actually said, you know, that's wrong. You can't read text that way, because the grammar just doesn't allow for it, right? Because language has rules and all that kind of stuff, right? So he explained how from that passage you cannot arrive at that conclusion with this, and I was like, like, it was just a huge shock for me, because it's like, wait, like, there's a leader that actually cares for some level of objective truth, right? And he's not afraid to say it because he believes that that's true, right? And he's able to show from scripture how that is true. And that was very shocking to me, because I always thought it's like, oh, since, you know, when I was younger, like, no one can really interpret it, my opinion versus yours, so then no point, right? End of story, close case. But actually, no, he showed that actually, some of my GG leaders showed that there's actually, you can read the Bible and you can work out with reasonable, to a certain reasonable degree, that, you know, whether what you're saying makes sense or not, right? And there's like many different ways to just understand a certain thing, right? And so we cannot just simply just pick and choose what we want it to be. It has to make sense from the author's point of view as well, because it's written by a human, right? And of course empowered by the Holy Spirit and all that. But it's just a huge culture shock, I guess. And I thought, wow, so the sermons on Sundays are like, they're great, you know, very God-centered, and even the Thursday Bible studies are like, wow, it's just really good stuff. People are taking Bible very seriously. So in my mind, I thought, wow, this must be a good church. So I just kept coming back.
Right. So how did you eventually decide to be a membership candidate then?
I think that, actually, when did I even start? I think initially I already wanted to be a membership candidate, because I thought, you know, just out of habit, right? Or that since I was younger, I was taught, you know, people need to be members of church. I didn't really know why.
Yeah.
So when I thought, okay, I'll just be a member of this church, no big deal. And in my mind, I thought that it was just signing a form. It's because that was how where I'm from we used to do it, right? It's just, oh, you want, you assent, you give your consent, okay, sign the form, done. And I think that was just how I initially wanted to, but I think to a certain degree I was still a very unloving person back then, even though I've been here for about a month or two. I thought of CRC as like this safe haven where I can just come and enjoy and consume all this good teaching and be with this Christians that actually fear God and just study the Bible together. So it was kind of like mini get away from reality kind of place, right? And I think my GG leader was loving to rebuke me, and he just said that I was just straight up, I'm unloving to the people around me, which is like family, friends, and all those that I grew up in, that because I've misunderstood Christianity, right? And if what I said was true and everybody around me was living life that way, wouldn't that mean that they too have not really understood the gospel properly, right? Because if they're thinking God is someone that's just a butler or a vending machine, that's really not who God presents himself to be in scripture. So he was just quite direct, and he just said like, you need to go love the people that were placed in your life lah. And so I thought, oh, actually that makes a lot of sense. That's what Christianity is, right? It's not just about your holy huddle that you just come and have fun with and enjoy life with. Of course there's some of that, right? Just to have joy together in fellowship. But it's the way I took it was like just kind of like a bunker that you just hide yourself from the world lah.
Yeah.
So I tried to go back lor. I tried to go to help my where I was from and the people that were there. I tried to speak to them about what I've learned, because I actually really wanted to get people to come and listen, because this is good stuff. It's admittedly it was a bit, I thought it was a bit long back then, but it's good stuff. None of this is like bad or terrible, I think, because a lot of the stuff that was taught was actually referenced from the scriptures, right? And they're actually telling you what the Bible is saying, so this can't be a bad thing. Even the scriptures, like even Bible studies, can't be a bad thing. So I try to bring that culture back, but I think it was just a very kind of a unfortunate reality, I guess, because it was not received very well, and I was quite confused back then why that was the case, because, but at least from my perspective, because I went to UK and then I came back and then I came to CRC, right? So I thought like, okay, like, I didn't really know that much about it, but from what I could see, from what I've experienced, I felt like this was a good church. But the people that I've tried to share those things with, they kind of warned me that I'm going to a really dangerous church. And I was very confused, because, and of course I would respect what they say, because I went to the UK, right? And UK, it's not Malaysia. Then these people, they've been here while I was away. So I thought like, oh, if this is a dangerous church, I need to find out why. And I don't think any of you all, I mean CRC, right? I don't think CRC was malicious at all. So I thought, right, that would mean that maybe you guys are teaching something that's wrong, right? In that case, I needed to come and tell you guys how to fix it. So I actually worked quite hard to find out like what were the things that were dangerous about it, right? So it's not just one, by the way. I think there was quite a handful of people that echoed the same sentiment that CRC is dangerous. Some who are more like direct, they would use words like cult-like, and I was very shocked, because if CRC is a cult, that means like a lot of people are going to go to hell, and a lot of people are dishonoring Jesus by preaching a false gospel. So I thought, this cannot go on. I need to fix it lah, if that was true. So I tried to ask like, hey, how is it dangerous? And I wanted to respect their opinion, because I was not from here. I came here from UK. So I think the very heartbreaking thing was that none of them could provide me any form of evidence. They usually always say stuff like, oh, I heard it from somewhere, read it on the internet, these kind of things. So I just thought like, wait, that's not very fair, is it? Because, well, you haven't really experienced this and you believe something you read on the internet. And some of them would say stuff like, oh, no, I heard it from a friend actually. So I even went one step further and I was like, are you okay to share the contact of that friend with me, because I need to go. But if this person has vital information of how CRC is being dishonoring to Jesus, I want to bring the evidence in, and I want to make the church repent, right? Because we're all Christians, right? And we can't be dishonoring to our Lord, lah. So if that's the case, then the very natural thing to do is find out what's the where we're being unfaithful and just remedy it, lah. And yeah, I think towards a certain degree, I had to come to a very heartbreaking conclusion. I was quite in denial at first when I was met with this level of I guess reality, lah. I was quite in denial, and I was just saying no, lah. They just, there really is something, but even until today, I can't really find these things. But there's always this notion that the church is dangerous from the outside. But I don't know. I find it very difficult to even understand their point of view. I mean, for me at least, we're just a bunch of people that just like to study our Bibles, like to sit under God's word, like to just gather together as a community and just worship God together, right? So for me, it was just very weird that those people were saying that, and I guess I kind of gave up just searching for that answer, because I think I was partly convinced that there was none, because I did try for quite some time and I just can't find it. So yeah, and that's kind of connected to how I decided that I would want to serve as a member here, because I see that this is a good work that we are doing for God's sake, and since all Christians are called to belong, right, called to be under Christ, to be united in His Son, then I think it just makes sense that we are all members of a local congregation together. So the natural response for me after all of that was to just accept the fact that I don't think everyone will be happy with the ministry that we're doing, and just commit my life to serving here, lah. So that's when I signed up for a membership badge. I think it was around, I forgot when I signed up, but it started in October 2021, I think.
Yeah.